Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rowan Petts, Executive Director here at the Australian Chamber of Commerce in South Korea. Today is part 3 of a 3-part webinar series, Post-COVID Transformation and Medtech Opportunities in Northeast Asia. We have 3 very special guests from Intralink, talking on 3 different markets, China, Japan, and South Korea. Today's topic is China, with our special guest, Alex Nukituk. If you would like to watch the other 2 parts of this series, I welcome you to log into www.austchamkorea.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Hello, everyone. I hope you had very insightful takeaways from 2 previous presentations from my colleague from Korea and Japan. And now let me share with you my presentation on China. So I would like to begin with my self-presentation very briefly. My name is Alex Nukituk. I'm originally from Ukraine, but I've been living in China for quite a while, since 2007. I am a fluent Chinese speaker, and I'm a graduate from Chinese University. After joining Intralink in 2017, I've been working as a lead of Medtech and life science, and the majority of projects I was related to were related to IVD and pharma space. You can see some cases of projects I was dealing with on your screens. All right, so I would like to start with overview of China as a country and its healthcare system. As we start, I would like to throw some facts at you about China. So to begin with, no big surprise, China is the largest country in the world. Every 5th person on Earth holds a Chinese passport. For us, perhaps more important is the fact that China is actually quite large in terms of its healthcare expenditures that reached the point of $931 billion US. To put this into perspective, the global healthcare expenditures were worth $8 trillion US by 2019, of which 3.6 trillion were attributed to the US market alone, and another 2 trillion were coming from the EU. So China came up third. And if you think that large country size necessarily mean great healthcare expenditures, it's not always the case. India, for instance, being very comparable in size, has only 1/10 of expenditures spent on healthcare as does China. Another important thing to mention is that healthcare expenditures are skyrocketing in China. Look at these numbers, 2009 and 2018. We see it's almost tripled in this period of time, and we'll get to know about the reasons why a little bit later. Speaking about medical device market as a part of healthcare market, it currently stands at the level of 81 billion. Again, to put this into perspective, according to Business Fortune Insight, the global market of medical devices was worth 420 billion in 2019, which makes China medical device market to be equal 22% of the global size. Now, if these are the basic data or basic statistical data from 2019, but if we look a little bit further away, I would say, if I had to name one single fact that will play significant role moving forward, this will be an aging population. Not surprisingly, together with Korea and Japan, China population is getting older. So if we look at the relative numbers, 18% of people over the age of 60 and 12.5% of people over the age of 65 seem quite acceptable, especially if we compare this with Japan, for instance. But if we look at the absolute numbers, 12.5% means 160 million of people over the age of 65, which is 22% of the global elderly population. And more importantly, China is standing in the beginning of its aging slope. The infamous one-child policy that started 40 years ago brought China to the point when its elderly population is going to explode. If we look at the projections from the United Nations, here we are about at this point, it will grow to the point to the level of 420 million of people over the age of 65 within just next several decades. China is literally sitting on a demographic bomb, and so it attracts a lot of attention from the central government. several factors that play out for the nation getting older. One is increased longevity, and another is fertility rate. Certainly, we are not at where Korea found itself, but it is lower than the natural reproduction rate. The last thing that I wanted to point out on this slide is that China has quite a robust infrastructure in terms of facilities and people. So almost 1 million healthcare units, of which 35,000 are hospitals, and everything else is categorized under grassroots healthcare units, which can be rural clinics, this type of healthcare units. China has a huge army of healthcare professionals, almost 13 million, of which 3.8 million are clinical doctors. And again, if we look at numbers of the most recent past, we see that China is actually improving on healthcare quite a lot. Only 20 years ago, China had 2 million of clinical doctors, and today it almost doubles the size. This brought China level of the number of clinicians per thousand of population to 2.59, which is within the expectations of WHO regulations. Another important point that those clinicians are working quite intensely. Look at the number of patient visits. It's quite impressive, 8.7 billion according to the statistics of 2019. I would like to talk a little bit more about healthcare system, how it is organized in China. And when we speak about healthcare systems, in particular to China, we usually have to factor in the role of the state. So for many decades, the government was the main healthcare provider through working units that acted throughout their affiliated hospitals. This system changed after Chairman Mao times, when the economy was reformed and more people were finding themselves outside of SOE coverage, healthcare coverage. So the out-of-pocket spendings really soared, reaching 60% of all healthcare expenditures by early 2000s, which led to creation of social security system. The healthcare system in China, the way we know it, is based on a medical health reform that started in 2009. And in very simple terms, the goal of this reform was establishing affordable and sustainable universal medical system. So let us talk about some pillars or key components of healthcare system in China. I'd like to start with a delivery system that is based on hospitals. Hospitals in China are divided in classes. The higher is the hospital class, the more government allocations it can receive, the better are the clinicians in the hospitals, the better is equipment, and the more patients visiting those hospitals. Let's take a look at the data from Bureau of Statistics. Here we see that class 3 hospitals, although being quite few in numbers, they receive an astonishing 2 billion patient visits per year. Imagine how large those hospitals are. And lower class hospitals, although more numerous in numbers, they receive way less patient visits. Also, another point is that public hospitals, also again being less numerous, they attract way more patient visits. So this whole situation with class 3 hospitals really is demonstrating the unbalances in the system, and the government is working trying to steer out patients from class 3 hospitals to lower tier hospitals. Now, the next component of medical system in China is its funding mechanism. I already mentioned that China implements a universal medical system, and which basically covers all population. Today, more than 95% of Chinese people are covered with insurance plan, and this partly explains why China has higher healthcare expenditures than India, for instance. So there are two basic insurance plans in China. One is for employed residents, and another for non-employed residents. Speaking about employed residents insurance scheme, its fund consists from contributions from an employee and employer, while non-employed residents have two sources of income for its fund. One comes from the government and another are individual contributions. It's very important that government part is quite substantial. It can be anywhere from 60 to 100%. So in normal situation, you would expect that the employee insurance scheme would be more prevalent, but it's not the case for China. In fact, more than 1 billion of people are using non-employed insurance scheme. And this is a result of some gray employment practices here in China. And this brings me to a very important application, because rural this non-employed resident medical insurance is so prevalent, and it's largely prompted by the government. The whole medical security system social security system is very vulnerable and is largely prompted by the government. If we look at the balance sheet of two funds, we can see that the non-employed insurance plan has a very small balance by the end of the year, which means that fund is basically exhausted within 1 year. The number of incomes are equal to the number of expenses. This is very dangerous situation. More than once, we've seen local media reporting on local hospitals being ordered from top down to restrain the number of outpatient visits by the end of the year. Why? Because the funds were empty. All right, and this brings me to the third pillar of a healthcare system in China. Its administration system. So with help of administrative measures, the government balances out this rocky funding mechanism, and it's making it more sustainable. In general, administration system optimizes expenses within the healthcare ecosystem. And today, the regulator uses a variety of measures to control the cost of healthcare. This may include adoption of diagnostic-related groups into payment schemes of the hospitals. Also improved optimization, improved procurement schemes in centralized procurement through centralized procurement offices. Also, another important way of cutting hospital expenses is by optimization price standards in a document known as a catalog of medical services and price standards, which is the basic document that regulates the scope of activities of a hospital. This catalog enlists services and its relative price standards. So just to give an example, let me demonstrate an excerpt from Shanghai municipality catalog. Everything is in Chinese, but luckily the numbers are in Arabic, so we can read them. This is an excerpt from for prices that hospitals in Shanghai can charge patients for MRI services, and there are three price levels depending on different field of strength of MRI machine. So why it is important to monitor price standards? Because changing in prices will lead to dramatic increase in or a decrease of your competitiveness in China. So it was a very lengthy intro, but hopefully it helps you to understand how system operates in China. Now let's move on to Medtech market overview. I have a number of slides, so I would like to share them with you one by one. Speaking about Medtech market growth, it's usually above 20% in recent years. As you can see, between 2014 and 2018, the Medtech market almost doubled in size in China. And if we look into the subcategories of or market segments of medical device market, we will see that medical equipment is the king, followed by high-cost consumables, and then low-cost consumables and IVDs. Because high-cost consumables is such a favorable place for international companies, let me break down the subcategories of this vertical. Cardiovascular implants generates the largest revenues, followed by orthopedic implants, and everything else is less than $1 billion in relative market shares. Now, speaking about imports and exports in China, imports are growing faster than exports. It almost tripled within the last 10 years, but exports from China are also growing. It's double the size of 2009, according to the statistics of data from 2018. All right. The last slide here would be about the subsequent subcategories on imported medtech products. And here, as we see, almost 70% of the share goes for medical equipment. All right, now let's speaking about trends and opportunities for medtech companies in China. Trends in China are mostly revolves around two government initiatives. One already mentioned earlier is known under the name of medical reform that started in 2009. And the second is known under the name of Healthy China 2030. Perhaps you've heard about this initiative. If not, let us move to the next slide to look into it in a little bit more details. So on this slide, on this table, you will find the information about Healthy China 2030, its main principles, and also key indicators within this initiative. In very simple terms, both healthcare, medical reform, and Healthy China 2030 initiatives are both working on building healthcare system that is well-balanced, self-sustainable, and fully in compliance with WHO recommendations on, in terms of longevity and also clinicians per thousands of population. All these things. In previous slides, I flagged some roadblocks that stay on the way to the policies that are outlined in Healthy China 2030. One is funding system being heavily subsidized by the government, and the other problem is high preference of hospital class 3 by preferences of hospital class 3 beyond among general population. And substandard quality of services provided by lower class hospitals. This brings me to several trends that the Chinese government sets for medtech market. These trends include cost effectiveness, optimization of delivery system, effective biologic surveillance of and management of transmissible diseases, management of chronic diseases and orphan diseases, aging-oriented healthcare provision, and finally, preventive care. So within those industry trends, we find also opportunities. Let us talk about it in a little bit more details. So cost effectiveness, I already mentioned that government subsidizes the healthcare in China. So cost effectiveness is a long-term trend here, and rather than define it, companies should rather embrace it. For laboratory instrument and medical equipment companies, this means developing high throughput, high automated solutions that can help hospitals to achieve economies of scales and basically save on personal expenses. Remember, I mentioned those class 3 hospitals hosting 2 billion of patients. Imagine how large those laboratories are in those hospitals. Now, speaking about optimization of delivery system, China is currently working on creation of a hierarchical medical system in which medical institutions at various levels receive patients according to the degree or urgency of the diseases they have. And provided that the system works, those 2 million patient visits will be dispersed around lower tier hospitals. As was mentioned earlier, clinicians in lower class hospitals, they may be less trained and have less expertise. So easy to use and computer-aided solutions that can help and assist diagnosis will be of much use. And also telemedicine will help to tackle the issue of optimization of delivery system. Now, COVID-19, it's exposed strategic vulnerabilities of both hospitals and laboratories. So fast diagnostic solution, AI augmented solution, will be of much use in this area. And also during COVID-19 epidemics, we've seen a lot of hospital robotics cases in China. So companies may find opportunities there as well. Now, speaking about chronic diseases, they usually require timely screening, regular checkups, monitoring, coordinating of treatment, and very soon many diseases that are will turn into long-term chronic diseases such as cancer, for instance. So technologies that can streamline this the process of monitoring chronic diseases will be very much in need. Speaking about aging oriented healthcare provision, very often it's deemed to have overlaps with management of chronic diseases. However, I think it's an independent area in terms of creation of home care solution, especially in maybe anti-fall detectors and other smart monitoring systems. Also in terms of wearables and innovative materials, and also 3D printing, especially in orthopedics. Preventive care vertical is quite large to speak about it in any meaningful sense. Nonetheless, it's worth mentioning that Chinese are getting more increasingly aware of health aware, and more willing to spend their money beyond what is required by hospital treatment. Now, speaking about COVID-19 and its impact on medtech, I would like to start by saying that China is very effective in preventing secondary spreading of COVID-19 within China. They achieve this by very effective screening measures when hundreds of thousands or perhaps even millions of tests are mandated in areas where single COVID-19 positive cases occur. This helped China to rebound and to the growth. In Q2 2020, China GDP growth was equal to 3.2%, and in Q3 the growth already reached the level of 4.2%. Now, speaking about the effect of COVID-19 on medtech industry, I really have a mixed feeling about it. Obviously, with hospitals restraining outpatient visits for months, had adverse effect on the industry. Many companies reported loss. Clinical trials were deferred, but at the same time, many many COVID-19 related industries were booming. Everyone knows the story about PPE and how China consolidated its dominance in the industry. But also IVD was really benefiting from this situation, especially molecular diagnostic. Some companies such as BGI, which is the largest and most respectable company, probably will grow 4 or 5 times. I wouldn't be surprised. Because of large government orders coming from different states. And also many companies spurred their innovation, rolling out very interesting instruments in molecular diagnostic. Also hospitals procured a lot of PCR instruments that will lay a groundwork for molecular diagnostic to be better accepted moving forward. Speaking about digital health, China was ahead of the curve even before COVID-19, but with COVID-19, China is even more focused on digital health. I don't have time to go into this area too deeply, but just to mention that the largest digital health operator, Ping An Good Doctor, has already 340 million registered users, and will soon reach the point of 1 million online consultations daily. Another important news that will further spur the development of the industry happened in the end of 2019, actually before COVID-19, with National Healthcare Security Administration launching the electronic medical insurance system, regulating the prices and insurance policies. And this opened doors for internet-based medical services to be covered by the country's medical insurance system. Now, speaking about China market entry, probably the first thing you will hear about China, if you're assuming that you are going to enter the market, will be the word NMPA, which stands for National Medical Product Association. It is an equivalent of FDA. National Medical Product Association is the main regulatory and administrative body that creates, implements, and governs all the standards related to medical devices and drugs, and also cosmetics. NMPA is responsible for pre-market and pre-market approval and post-market surveillance. So at some point you will definitely encounter NMPA. Most likely the most tedious work will wait for you when you register your product. Market approval regulations are quite patchy, not always crystal clear. They are prone for regular updates, and obviously there is a language barrier. Speaking about classification of medical devices, it's really close to what we have in Europe and the US. So 3 classes of products, and depending on their relative risk to patients, they are divided in class 1 to class 3. Regulation pathway is completely different for different types of classes of medical devices. Now, speaking about best practices to enter China, these are universal things, but let us discuss them in respect to China. So with according to vision, obviously you need to have clear vision about your respective vertical in terms of market in terms of market size, prices, local practices, reimbursement levels. Then obviously you need to have the product that will be careful for China specifically. Chinese companies are not willing to pay for any engineering services, development fees. So you need to bring the product that Chinese companies will need. Speaking about logistics, it can be quite an intricate problem, especially in the beginning, especially if you deal with biological reagents. Getting those into China will be a major challenge. So you need to clear the way before doing business in China in terms of the logistics. Now, partners, the majority of failed cases are related to problems with partners. So you really have to choose the right partner to help you to enter China. Now, then presence, even if you have the best product and the best partners, you will still it will still be necessary to have regular visits to China, or perhaps you may end up deploying people here, or even create your local entity in China. And last but not least, trends and opportunities. You need to have a clear vision of the trends in China, opportunities that they present, and how you should deal with this. So speaking, provided that you are armed with all this knowledge, what you should do, the recommendation I usually make is to have your helicopter view on China, even before you start, even before you come to for the exhibition. Just have a clear view on your product and how well it fits into China. I probably echo with slides from Charles here. Then you need to identify the cost and time frame for your product. You need to have realistic expectations about how much time and what it will cost you to enter China. Also, you have to arrange a comprehensive partner search. We usually recommend starting with 20 companies, long list that you shorten down to 6-7 companies, and finally you choose your partners. Also, registration agents in China, there are different options. You can assign your partner, you can assign yourself, and you can assign the third party to be a registration agent. You have to choose to make those choices wisely. Also, don't treat China as a side project. You have to assign people within your company that will work with China 24/7. It's a very special market. You have to act locally while thinking. You have to think globally, locally while acting globally. And perhaps the last thing to mention, Hong Kong can be a pilot project before you decide to enter mainland China. Because obviously it is a very, its regulations are quite lax if we compare this with mainland China. So in a summary, China is has universal medical healthcare, which opens a market of 1.4 billion people. It's a very sizable market in terms of medical devices, 22% of global market. Imports are growing quite intensely in the last decade, over 20% of growth year on year. There is plenty of opportunities in automation, point of care, personalized healthcare, innovative materials, 3D printing, and so on and so forth. But you have to be prepared for entering China.